Basketball looks to bounce back Saturday. The KD, Kyrie, and Harden trio spark debate, and 4 remain in the fight for the Super Bowl. I'm Owen Simpson alongside Tavian Miles and Jalen Garrett. Welcome to the Top of the Key. Top of the Key is a product of the ACU Optimist and available to listen on all platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also check us out on our website at acuoptimist.com. This is also our first video podcast, so you can check it out on our website as well. All right, let's get to it. So we go back to Wednesday. Men's basketball and women's basketball both fall on the road to Sam Houston State. Let's talk about the implications of both of these losses. Jalen, let's start with you. Is there a reason for concern with these losses?
No, I do not think there is a reason for concern. However, let's talk about the men's first. They shot 15.8% from 3, which is their lowest of the entire season. We saw Ariane Simmons go off the bench, 16 points, and they were out-rebounded 47-33. And I think that's what let them lose this game. We saw from Sam Houston, DeMarcus Lampley, who dropped 30 points off the bench as well. And so I don't think there's nothing to be scared about. I think when you're a team like ACU who is playing really well for the men's team and you're the 4th best scoring defense in the entire country, that means something. I think every now and then you need a loss to wake you up and to say, hey, what can we do better going throughout this season? But I don't think there's necessarily concern. They are a defensive team. There's nothing to be worried about for this team.
Tavian?
I don't think there's a lot to worry about from the women's just because this was just a game that it was just back and forth and they just couldn't get the ball in the last possession. I think for the men, there's a lot to worry about just because you're a defensive team. And I think they kind of take that mindset from a West Virginia, Bob Huggins team or a Chris Beard's Texas Tech team. But the one thing that separates us from Tech is Tech has that guy they can go to in the end and who can drop 20-plus, 30-plus points. Whereas for us, I still don't think we have that guy. I think we're relying too much on defense. I think we're relying too much on transition points. And we can force a lot of turnovers, but in that last game on Wednesday, we gave up a lot of turnovers. And so I think there's a little bit of concern on the offensive side of who's going to step up and kind of control the game because Ariane Simmons, he's a great guy. He's a great ball player, but you can't have him be that guy. For him, I think it was just a game that he was just on a roll. But you need to find that consistency guy who's going to lead it from the top.
See, when I look at the men's game, I see the second lowest points scored in the entire season. Texas Tech was the only one that was lower. So 57 points, you lose 64-57. And when I see that, I'm not as concerned. Actually, I'm going to take it the other way. I'm not as concerned about the men as I am the women. The reason I'm not as concerned about the men essentially is you don't have Corian Mason in the starting lineup. He's your leading scorer, and he's not always going to be the scoring threat that most of us think of, but rather as a facilitator on offense to get some momentum really rolling. Yeah. When you go back to the win against Southeastern Louisiana, when Corian Mason got hurt early in that game, it was really slow moving on offense and to start that game. When he comes back in, the offense starts rolling. He isn't necessarily scoring points, but he's the one facilitating the ball, moving it around, creating some kind of rhythm on the offensive side. And I think that was what was really missing down the stretch because you look at Sam Houston, they didn't have a single field goal in the last 8 minutes of the second half. 8 minutes, and you still lose by 7 points. So you didn't have Corian. Emmanuel Allen goes out, and he's not going to have a huge role. He didn't have a huge role this year, but he was an efficient scorer when he came in, shooting over 50%, 5 points a game. Yeah. He's a good role player for you, so him going out definitely created another issue there. But again, I think it was, and talking to Coach Golding after the game, it was not being able to get the rebounds. Out-rebounded 47-33. That's a game you don't win on the road. So I think it's an easier one to bounce back from. It's one of the best teams in the Southland Conference. I think it's going to be ACU and Sam Houston down the stretch. Yep. Road games are a concern from what I've seen so far, true road games for the men because you barely beat Houston Baptist. You fall to Sam Houston, a place that they haven't won in 4 years. They haven't won in Huntsville in 4 years. Yeah. So it's been their kryptonite. So when they come back here to Abilene, I'd like to see what happens. But again, I think when you put Corian back in that lineup, they aren't held under 60.
Yeah.
And it's like I said at the beginning of the season, the guards are going to take us as far as we can. And if the guards aren't producing, then no one else is going to produce. Like our forward, Joe Pleasant won't produce, Colton Cole won't produce, Arion won't produce, and so you got the guards are going to have to step it up and facilitate and get people open.
And when you look at the women's side, now this is where I am more concerned because you have all your players. Alyssa Adams goes off for almost 30 points, 9 rebounds, and you get beat handily. You lose 88-72. It was really out of reach, you could tell from the start. The shots weren't falling from the perimeter. I think that was the big concern. Yeah. So you have your best player, and I really feel like Alyssa has really solidified herself as the best player on this team. Just her ability to separate herself from defenders, especially inside the paint, has been a priceless tool for the Wildcats this season. She went off.
Yes.
Anna McLeod had 17, also a good performance, and you still lose handily to a team that has lost a couple in the Southland Conference already. So I think that's a reason to be concerned because, yes, it's a road matchup. Every game is unique, but given the fact that they've had now back-to-back, well, they had a close game at home, and then they have a awakening moment, I think, on the road. This is a different team, and I think there's going to have to be some players that step up down the stretch.
Yeah, and I think you kind of lost the scoring from Maddie Miller and then Cameron Mraz, just kind of like you lost a little bit of that, and I think that also played a role because those are like Cameron Mraz 4 points and then Maddie Miller only 3 points. Usually that's like maybe a 10-point performance from Maddie and then maybe a 12-point from Cameron and then with like 8 assists on top of that, and you just lost that, and so that definitely played a big factor.
Yeah, and when you look at the turnovers, that was their second highest turnover in the season, and you had the 3 top scorers in the entire Southland Conference in one game. And so, as you said, Owen, Alyssa Adams is just flourishing like no other. And so this was a little scary for the women's. I hope they bounce back.
When you take a look, and we'll get back to basketball in a sec, when you look at the other sports going on around campus, volleyball starting up a week from today. They have a home matchup, UT Arlington. I don't know what your expectations are going into this season. You're coming off a 7-19 record before the pandemic. What are we supposed to expect? Tavian, let's hear your thoughts on this.
I think we'll see another season of individual growth, like from players, but I don't think we'll see any of that correlate with the record, especially with there's a lot of practice. Like obviously they've been practicing. They didn't have a fall season and all that, but I think even with all that practice, it's still a shortened season, and us kicking it off with UT Arlington twice, I think. Of course, like we'll start off 2-0, but like I don't think that's like who we should start off with, especially with a shortened season. And I think yes, we'll see 2 wins out of that, but from there on, I don't think we'll see a lot of wins, and I don't see us going to the Southland Conference tournament. I think it'll be a rough. We'll see individual growth, we'll see players step up, but I don't think it'll be enough to actually get wins.
I agree. And one of the questions you sent was, do you think this will be our last season? This is a make-or-break season.
And you're talking about Coach Mooney?
Yes, okay. Coach Angela Mooney. For 3 years straight, they've had records below 500. So this is a season where you need to show some growth, show some improvement in mechanics, and as you said, Tavian, growth in individual players. So for Coach Mooney, this is a make-or-break season for her as well.
Yeah, when you look at just where they've gone from where she starts, she comes in, first season, they go, I believe it was 11-15 in regular season play. They get the 8th seed in the Southland Conference, take down SFA in the first round, make it to the championship, lose in the Southland Conference Championship. So, despite that, outcome, it's a good first year given for, for any coach. I mean, it didn't do well in the regular season, wasn't amazing, but it seemed to make an impact in the postseason. Then you go 13-16 in the regular season the next year, don't make the tournament, and then you really take a step back, 7-19 last season. I mean, again, I don't know what to expect from this volleyball team. Again, I think it depends on the schedule as well on whether you get wins or losses. But Southland Conference competition, and I talked to several players throughout the volleyball team, and mostly former players who graduated last year, and they just say, I I don't know if Coach Mooney can recruit to the same level that these other Southland Conference teams can recruit.
Yeah.
And I think that shows off when you take a look at their conference record. It has been a dismal performance over the past few years. So, again, I think this is a make or break year for Coach Mooney. If I'm the one in charge, I want to see 500 or above for this season. If not, I don't know if it should really continue to be on this trajectory. I think you need to find a new head coach.
Yeah, and it's like, looking at like last year's like matchup, it wasn't like, oh, it was a 3-2 set. It was a bunch of sweeps, like 0-3, 1-3, and especially even like preseason. Yes, you're playing like upper level D1 schools, but even in conference, there was a lot of 3-1s, 3-1s, 3-0s, and maybe probably only 1-3-2. And so it was kind of like the first sets were great, but then after that, they didn't have a game plan. And so I think this season, if they don't go above 500, she's out of there.
Mm-hmm. Let's get back to basketball. Men and women are back home for the next 2 games. They both face Central Arkansas tomorrow and then Stephen F. Austin later next week on Wednesday. Let's talk about both of these teams. They're both undefeated at home so far this season, conference and non-conference. Jalen, how do the women and men stay undefeated at home over the next 2 games?
I think for the women, you have to set the tone early. And again, both teams, they know how to dominate home. This is their home. But for the women, setting the tone early and bringing energy is key. When you see Coach Goodenough, she is always filled with energy and is always making her players, whether it's pressing or getting back on defense or rushing, pushing the ball in transition. So I think if they set the tone early and bring energy in the first half, they can be as dominant as they have been throughout the season as they can be at home as well as on the road.
I think for men, it's just kind of trying to get their big involved. I think you really got to just preach that, hey, we got to get rebounds. We can't get out-rebounded like that, like against Sam Houston. And I think they're going to have to play like they did against Texas Tech. They're going to have to play with that same intensity. I think a big reason probably they did play like that against Tech was probably because it's a big school, we got something to prove and all that. Well, you need to play with that intensity with a bunch of these like teams in your conference. You need to show them that, hey, like we're still that top team that went up against Tech, and especially because if you win the tournament, you're in, and if we get second place in the tournament, we're probably not getting a bid. So you got to go out there and have that same intensity. And then for the women, I think it's just getting your guards back involved. We see Alyssa, we see Anna, we know that they can put up numbers, but it's like, will the others step up? Will the others put up 10 and 12 and get Cam? Will she get 8? And will people off the bench, will they be able to contribute? And so I'm looking forward to just seeing how they'll get the others involved and not just have a 2-man show.
I'm taking this another way. As far as the women go, they're not going to go 2-0 in this stretch. I don't care how well they play. I don't see them going 2-0. I see them winning tomorrow against Central Arkansas. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. SFA is on another level of good basketball for the women's team. They have won, I just want you guys to comprehend this, they have won by as many as 43 points in all of their Southland Conference games so far, winning on average by 52 points.
Wow.
52 points. We have not won a game, men or women, by 52 points. That is not, we haven't even been up by 52 points this season. Right. So they have won in 4 Southland Conference games by a total of 261 points.
Wow.
261. They're on their way to being nationally ranked. They are on their way to being nationally ranked. Now, the men, on the other hand, I think it's more simple. They just have to start making 3-pointers.
Yes.
If you can't make more than 2 or 3 3-pointers in a game off of 18, 19, 20 attempts, generally speaking, you're not going to win a basketball game.
Yes.
And I think that was another reason Sam ended up coming out on top. I can't even remember, it had to be over their last 7 of 3-point attempts in the final 5 minutes of the game. They needed just 1 or 2 to fall, and they're right back in that game. Couldn't get 1 to connect. So they need to make a few 3-pointers, and just like that, I think they're back in this game. You go back to the Lamar matchup, those 3-pointers started falling in the second half for the men's team.
Yeah.
If they can do that, if they can make 8, 9, 10 3-pointers in a game, nobody's going to beat them in the conference.
Right.
So I think the 3-point game is going to be crucial in that SFA matchup. I'm not concerned about the defense as much. I think the defense has solidified itself as consistent, but you know, it is true, defense wins championships, but you got to have somebody who's going to score on offense.
Yeah.
So I'm not concerned about UCA for both of these teams. SFA for both of these teams is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
261 points.
261 in 4 games.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
No without doubt. All right, we have hit our break. We will be right back to talk about some Super Bowl and going forward to the KD, Harden, and Kyrie developments. Stay with us. This is Top of the Key. Welcome back. Well, KD, Kyrie, and Harden are on one team. I'd have to say if you go back 2 or 3 years and somebody told me that, there's no way in heck, because how are you going to get all those guys on one team? No way, even with, just the sheer talent. And these guys are still incredibly talented. They haven't really slumped off from the past few years. KD, yeah, he's had an Achilles tear, but he's performing to the MVP talent that he had back at the Warriors. So they're all back, and they all played together for the first time. You'd think they do well. They go in double overtime, lose to the Cavaliers. 147, 135 in double OT. Now, you go back to the previous 2 games that it was just Harden and KD, they go 2-0.
Right.
So, Tavian, let's start with you. Can these 3 players work together effectively?
Yes, as long as Kyrie is okay with having 20 points, 8 assists, and 3 rebounds.
Right.
If he's okay with that stat line, great. They're going to mesh well together. But he shouldn't be the one that's dropping 37 and Harden's the one having 20. Because when you look at the stat sheet for the Nets-Cavs game, Durant had 38 and 12 and 8. He did great. And KD's going to ball no matter what. And then you look at Harden, only had 21 points. He did have a triple-double. I'll give him that. It went to double overtime to get that triple-double. But he shouldn't be the one that's having 21 points. I think he's a better scorer than Kyrie. I think he's a better player than Kyrie. I think Kyrie kind of needs to learn. Kyrie didn't want to be a Robin, and he's going to have to learn to be the third player. Like, he can't be the second guy. And I think they'll fit well as long as he's really looking to be a true point guard and not a shooting guard.
Jalen?
Yes, I definitely agree. And we have to give Durant credit. He had 4 blocks. And so we have seen an improvement since he's been in Golden State of how defensively he's been getting better. I think with Harden, as you said, Tavian, he's going to have to be that second scorer. I don't think Irving has the ability to just score like James Harden can do. Like, we've seen James Harden go on 40-point, 50-point stretches for 10 games straight. And so I think Kyrie is going to have to realize that I am the point guard, and so I need to be the point guard, whether it's me averaging 7 or 8 assists. Your head coach is one of the greatest point guards to ever live.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe him and Nash need to develop that relationship, and how can I be a better point guard and not just a better scorer. And since Harden has joined, he's averaging 29, 12, and 9 and shooting 46% from the field. So again, Harden has not lost his touch scoring. This is going to be up to Kyrie to really go and be the point guard of the team.
I always go back to the question, why did Westbrook and Harden not work? And my short answer is 2 ball hogs don't get it done.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my opinion on it. And when you look at this, when you see Harden and Kyrie, I feel like it's really similar. No Kyrie's no Westbrook. They're not the same player, but they do have similar tendencies. They like to shoot the last shot, and that's why Harden ended up having to leave Houston, because this whole development with Westbrook didn't work out. And when I like what you have to say, if he's comfortable with the 20 points, I think it works. But I don't think that's who he is.
Yeah.
Right.
And I also, you can add on to the off-court drama that also can create other problems, because you've got KD balling out every single night while he's out who knows where on who knows what Zoom press conference.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
He changes it up every week. But he's at least back. I'll give him that. But again, give it a few games. But if it's still not working out, I think that the Nets have some serious talks. They need to have serious talks about, okay, do we need to find more talent at a different position in trade for Kyrie? So, again, I think it's going to depend, but I don't like the chances.
Yeah, and really with them, I think Kyrie, like, he is a tremendous, like, he has tremendous handles. He knows how to create the separation. He can blow by. But I think after that point, he's not looking to pass it at that point.
Right.
Whereas he has people open, but he'll always take the tough shot. And I think what the Nets are missing is a true, like, Rondo or a true Chris Paul, someone like that who's going to facilitate. DeJounte Murray, someone like Dragic, like someone who's going to, hey, I'm going to accept the role, I'm going to facilitate. And they're missing a few key bench players. They gave up their future to win now. And I know we're not talking about championships, but if they don't win a championship this year, then that's a bad season.
Yeah.
Like a lot of teams, you get there, oh, it's a great season. But for them, if they don't win it, it's a bad season.
Now, yeah, I always go back to also with the Warriors. We always had this debate too about, okay, how can all of these talented all-stars play selfless basketball? And the answer was they were selfless players.
Right.
Steph Curry can go off for 50, 60 points in a game, but also he can settle with 18 points and 10 assists and do what else he needs to do.
Right.
Same thing with Klay Thompson, same thing with Draymond Green, same thing with Kevin Durant, and we've seen it on every place he has played.
Yeah.
He's comfortable doing whatever he needs to do. Harden and Kyrie are not the same.
Right.
So again, I think it'll depend. We're going to see what happens. All right. Up this weekend, we finally find out who is playing in the Super Bowl for the most unusual season, hopefully, in our lifetimes. Who is headed there and why? Jalen.
I have Tampa Bay versus Kansas City. I think when you look at this Tampa Bay team, Tom Brady has not missed a beat at all. And Tampa Bay, Washington, I'm not going to lie, they did kind of scare me a little bit. And not to say that they were going to win, but they made it somewhat competitive in a sense of challenging.
Kind of like Tavian said, like on his Twitter. Remember that?
What did I say?
Well, Washington was going to try and
What
beat
did
the
you
Bucs.
say?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Washington
yeah.
had a shot.
And then like an hour later, you switched your tweet around.
No, because Alex Smith got out.
But
That's two different things. Alex Smith was there. They're winning.
Right. But I think with Tampa Bay, you know, Mike Evans, we hope that he's healthy. You know, I think Rob coming back, he has been a great blocking tight end. He might not have his crazy receiving stats, but he has been great as a blocker. And so for Kansas City, Cleveland also scared me. You know, you had Patrick Mahomes out for the whole second half, and Cleveland had a chance to win, but they still held on and were able to beat Cleveland. And Patrick Mahomes today was cleared out of concussion protocol. And I think with all these other weapons that they have, they will be healthy and they will be ready to beat Buffalo in Arrowhead. They are dominant in Arrowhead. And so I think it'll be Tampa Bay versus Kansas City for the Super Bowl.
Tavian.
Right.
Objections?
Definitely.
Oh, okay.
As much as I want to see the youngster versus the GOAT, Mahomes versus Brady, we're not going to see that matchup.
Okay.
We're going to see Mahomes versus Rodgers. And I had in my notes because this is before, released probably about an hour ago that Mahomes is going to play. I said Chad Henne was going to be the star of this week's game. And I was going to be fine with that. No matter what, whoever was going to be behind for them, it was going to be the Chiefs winning it. Especially because the Bills playing the Ravens, they barely beat a defeated Ravens team.
Yeah.
And it honestly should have been 10-3 final if the Ravens didn't be like the Seattle Seahawks and throw it inside the 5 in a 103-yard pick six. Now, for the NFC side, I think Rodgers is playing on another level. I think he'll probably end up being the MVP this year.
Yes.
Followed by Mahomes getting second and then Josh Allen third. But I just think the only person who has been able to probably get a sense of what the weather's like in Green Bay is only Brady.
Right.
Tampa Bay, they're used to the sunshine. They're used to having 80, 70 degree, 80 degree weather, nice weather. But when you go into their house, and I think Green Bay has fans too, Lambeau, and they're probably thinking it might snow also. I think Rodgers is ready for that. I think Green Bay is ready for that game plan. And I think Tampa Bay, I think they're going to be in for a rude awakening, especially in the first half. I think the second half will be competitive, but I think that first half Green Bay pulls away, and it's going to be hard for the Bucs to climb back in.
As much as I like Tavian's who he's rooting for. I'll be doing the same. I want the old versus the young in the Super Bowl. I want a Mahomes, Brady Super Bowl. I want that, just like that AFC Championship game you go back 2 years ago.
Yes.
But y'all are both wrong. It's going to be the Bills and the Bucks. And here's why I'm going to say Bills and Bucks. I got Bills and the Bucks, and here's why. I trust the Buffalo defense more than any defense that is out and still remaining in this competition. We've got 4 teams left. I'm taking the Bills defense.
Okay.
Secondly, Mahomes, he's coming back. I know he's coming back. But this guy, he's coming off a brutal hit. He's not going to be getting the same amount of reps that he typically does in a playoff game.
Right.
I talked about this last week too. And it may have been the case. It may have changed if Mahomes not have been hurt. But they haven't won a game by more than 6 points in over 9 games. The Chiefs have not been able to blow out teams, and they haven't been able to score as much as they would like with all that talent they have on offense. Travis Kelce, and arguably what we may see down the road, 10, 15 years as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I have not been impressed with all the talent they have on this team that they can score 26, 27 points, maybe 31 every 4 or 5 weeks. That's not enough for me. So, with a Buffalo defense, Mahomes banged up. He's not getting the same amount of reps he typically does. I've got the Bills in that one. And then you go to the other side. The only reason I'm picking the Bucks over the Packers, and the Packers, when I look at the matchup, this season Aaron Rodgers has been the best quarterback in the NFL, without a doubt. That's how I look at it. He has been one of the most dominant players, too, when it comes to playoff time. If you want a Hail Mary in the last seconds, you go to Aaron Rodgers more than anybody else. That guy can throw more Hail Marys than anybody in NFL history. But the reason I'm picking this, and I'm picking Brady, is because, one, he had Green Bay's number in the regular season, big time.
Right.
And secondly, this is his revenge tour.
Yeah.
This is to show that he is not a quarterback for a particular scheme or a particular offense.
I mean, but the Saints had the Bucks' number all year.
Hey, I said coming into this year that this is going to be Drew Brees. This is going to be his decline, and he's retiring now. So this is his revenge tour. He is showing Belichick and the Patriots that he can work on a ton of schemes. He's not a one-dimensional quarterback. He can do it NFC and the AFC. I've got a Bills and Bucks Super Bowl.
I think it's just like LeBron, too. He dominated the East, and he can dominate in the West as well. So with the Bills, it's how are they going to guard Diggs? Diggs has arguably been the best wide receiver in the league in the regular season. He led the league in receiving yards. And Josh Allen threw 45 touchdowns. I never trusted Josh Allen at first, but now he totally proved me wrong. So I like the Bills as a dark horse as well, but I think Mahomes is just, this is going to be a revenge game for him as well. I think he's going to be confident. I think he knows that Kansas City hasn't been their identity in the past 9 games, as you said. So I think Mahomes is going to be in a different space, but we will have to see what he does with the reps, and he's going to have to get it going very, very early against that Bills defense.
Without a doubt. We'll find out this weekend. Thank you all for tuning in to Top of the Key, once a week podcast for the Optimist staff. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.